Hey everybody, this is Hapi, and this is my guide to Ranger in Dragon Quest X. Ranger is one of the more unique jobs in the game because it is not just a damage dealer, and it is not exactly a healer either. The simplest way to describe Ranger is it is a support utility job that can still contribute damage. Your job is to keep the party stable, protect people from dangerous breath attacks, help with revives and rebuffs, and create damage windows where the whole party can hit harder. So if you play Ranger well and you are not just pressing attacks, you can make the entire party safer, smoother, and stronger. Before I get into the skills, I want to mention that some of the English names may vary depending on the translation patch. So for this guide, I'm going to focus more on what each skill does rather than its name. Ranger supports the party while still taking part in damage. You help keep physical attackers buffed with attack up, you help protect the party with Mist Me, and when someone dies, you can revive them so the healer does not have to stop healing everyone else. And after someone gets revived, you can help put their buffs back. That is one of the biggest differences between a good Ranger and someone who is just attacking. A good Ranger sees the whole fight, not just their own buttons. When you play Ranger, you should constantly be asking, is everyone alive and at enough HP to keep fighting? Does the party have breath protection? Do physical damage dealers have attack up? Is the healer under too much pressure? Is the enemy ready for another damage window? And do I have enough time to safely swap weapons for the next tool? Once those things are handled, then you can focus more on your own damage. Ranger also has offensive support. Cerberus Rondo, Revel Slicer, and Somersault Claw can all increase the damage the enemy takes. When one of those lands, that is the moment where your party wants to use their own strongest attacks. So Ranger is not only a defensive support, but it is also a burst setup job. But when do you actually want to use Ranger? I think it's important to explain when a party actually wants to use Ranger. Ranger is especially valuable when a fight asks for both survival support and damage support. The clearest example is when a boss has dangerous breath attacks. Mist Me can block one breath attack completely, which is very different from simply reducing breath damage. This matters a lot when bosses use multiple types of dangerous attacks. For example, if a boss uses both strong spells and strong breath attacks, it can be very hard to gear everyone perfectly for both. In that kind of fight, the party may gear towards spell resistance and then rely on Ranger to cover breath attacks with Mist Me. This is one of Ranger's biggest strengths. Ranger can solve a breath problem without forcing every player to completely build around breath resistance. Ranger is also valuable when the party wants more damage up windows. Cerberus Rondo, Revel Slicer, and Somersault Claw help the whole party deal more damage. So a party may want Ranger when the boss has dangerous breath attacks, the healer needs help with revives, the party wants more burst windows, or the fight rewards coordinated damage timing. That is why Ranger is not just a missed job. Ranger protects the party, helps recover from deaths, and creates the moments where everyone can deal more damage. Ranger has a lot of support tools, but the main ones you need to understand are Mist Me, Crimson Fog, Oomful, Revive Magic, More Heal, and Dark Fog. Mist Me is one of Ranger's most important skills. It gives nearby allies a one-time block against breath attacks. This is extremely powerful against bosses where breath attacks are dangerous or instantly lethal. The important part is that Mist Me only blocks one breath attack. Once the boss uses breath, that protection is gone for anyone who got hit by it. So you cannot just use Mist Me once and forget about it. You need to keep watching the party's buff and reapply it after breath attacks, after deaths, or when it's about to expire. A common beginner mistake is thinking, I already used Mist, so we're safe. But if the boss breathes once, that person's Mist is gone. This is especially important after a revive. When someone dies, they usually lose their buffs. When they come back, they probably need Mist Me again. Next up, we have Crimson Fog. This is one of Ranger's strongest support skills. It gives nearby allies attack up and Mist Me at the same time. This makes it an amazing opening skill because it prepares the party for damage while also protecting them from breath. At the start of many fights, Crimson Fog lets you cover 2 jobs with one action, buffing physical attackers and giving breath protection. The downside is that it has a cooldown, so if someone dies later, you will usually rebuff them with Oomphal and Mist Me separately instead of waiting for Crimson Fog. Next up, we have Oomphal. Oomphal is your single target attack buff that gives 2 stages of attack up. You use it when one physical attacker needs attack up again. The most common example is after someone dies and gets revived. A revived damage dealer without attack up is not fully back in the fight, so if it is safe, you can revive them, Oomphal them, and then get back to your normal role. Ranger also gets Zing style revive spells, such as Zin or Zing. This is one of the biggest reasons Ranger is useful. If someone dies, Ranger should often be one of the first jobs thinking, can I safely revive them? That doesn't mean you revive no matter what. If the boss is about to attack you, or if going for the revive gets you killed, you still need to play safely. But in general, Ranger helps stop the healer from getting overloaded. If you can revive someone safely, do it. Then check what they need next. Do they need Oomphal? Do they need Mist Me? Do they need a heal? Ranger also gets more heal. You're not the main healer, but more heal is useful in an emergency situation. If someone is alive but in danger, a quick heal from Ranger can save the situation. Insulatal is another spell that Ranger gets. It increases the party's breath resistance, which is different from Mist Me. Mist Me blocks the breath attack completely, whereas Insulatal reduces the breath damage it takes. Both are useful, but Ranger is usually not brought out to cast Insulatal. If the party simply wants to stack breath resistance, there are other jobs or strategies that fit that plan better. Ranger is strongest when Mist Me solves a problem that would be awkward for the party to gear around. For example, if the boss uses both spell and breath, then the party can prepare for more spell in their equipment while the Ranger covers the breath resistance in Mist Me. So I would think of Insulatal as a useful extra tool, but Mist Me is usually the more important Ranger identity. Next up, we have Dark Fog. It's a Ranger debuff skill. It can lower the enemy's attack, weaken their spell damage, and apply Bedazzled, which can make physical attacks miss. This is useful because it makes the enemy less dangerous. It's not guaranteed to matter on every boss because some enemies can resist certain debuffs, but when it works, it can reduce a lot of pressure on the party. Ranger also has a few older utility tools that are more niche and kind of outdated. Win Over is a charm style skill. It can be useful in specific situations, but it's not something you usually use. Metal Trap prevents an enemy escaping. Despite the name, it's not only for metal enemies, but in endgame boss content, it's usually not a very important button. Mercy lets weaker enemies escape. It can be useful if you want to end an unwanted encounter quickly, but it's not part of battle rules. For normal Ranger gameplay, the important support tools are Mist Me, Crimson Fog, Oomphal, Revives, Emergency Healing, and Damage Up windows. Now let's get into the offensive roles. Ranger has animal-themed skills. The important ones are Fenrir Whistle, Cerberus Rondo, and Anubis Attack. Wolf Attack is an older Ranger skill. It's fine to know it exists, but it's a low priority attack. If stronger tools are available, you will usually use those instead. Fenrir Whistle is a stronger Ranger attack that hits multiple times. This isn't that useful unless you're using Axe, because Ranger's Axe skill line specifically strengthens Fenrir Whistle and adds defense down to it. On non-Axe setups, it's not particularly useful, but on Axe, it's one of your main damaging skills. For your main CT skill, we have Cerberus Rondo. This is one of Ranger's most important skills overall. It attacks the enemy and applies damage taken up, meaning the enemy takes more damage for a short time. This is not your damage, it's party damage. If Cerberus Rondo lands, your whole party has a chance to hit harder. Because of that, you should not throw it out randomly. Use it when people are alive, in position, and ready to attack. If you're holding Axe, Cerberus Rondo also gets stronger because of the Ranger Axe passives. And last, but certainly not least, we have Anubis Assault. Anubis Assault is Ranger's offensive's Coup de Grace. And the main thing you need to know right now is that it deals damage and sets the enemy's defense to 0. Because that window is so short, you want to coordinate it with your party as it is strongest when your party can attack right away. Axe also straightens Anubis' assault, so Axe Ranger has extra synergy. One of Ranger's most important jobs is creating damage windows. Ranger has 3 major ways to increase the damage the enemy takes: Cerberus Rondo from Ranger's job skill tree, Revel Slicer from the Boomerang skill tree, and Somersault Claw from the Claw skill tree. These are some of the most important skills in Ranger's entire kit, as when one of these lands, the whole party can deal more damage for a short time. That means these are not just Ranger damage tools, but they are party DPS tools. The best time to use them is when your party is ready to attack, your damage dealers have their cooldowns ready, and the boss is in a safe position. And if people are alive and able to hit the boss, that is when damage up skills become super valuable. But if the party is dead, running away, rebuffing, or out of range, then using these skills will usually waste the window. A simple way to think about it is that you first stabilize the party, make sure everyone's damage is up, then the party bursts and you go back to support. A bad ranger uses damage up when the cooldown is ready, whereas a good ranger uses damage up because the party is ready. Ranger also gets earth spells, but they're not very useful, and in modern content I would just not focus on these. They're slow and awkward and usually not a major part of Ranger's damage. Now let's get into the Boomerang skill tree. Boomerang and Shield is generally the most standard support Ranger setup, as Boomerang gives you Revel Slicer, Double Down, and the element resist down attacks, as well as the Shield giving you survivability. That makes Boomerang and Shield a very comfortable role for Ranger to play. To start off with skills, you get Ooze Bruiser, which is a slime family attack. It deals extra damage to slimes. Overall, not a skill you need to think very much about. Next up, we have Metal Licker for metal enemies. It generally guarantees one to do damage to metal enemies more reliably, but for something like a Metal King Slime, it's too slow to be your main answer. Power Throw is a basic area attack around you. It sounds useful on paper, but there's other better Boomerang skills. Starburst Throw is a light-based AoE attack around you, and it scales with Magic Might, but for Ranger, it's usually not a good skill to use. Blazebird Throw is one of the new Boomerang skills that Ranger specifically gets, and it's very powerful. It's a fire multi-hit attack that can lower ice resistance. It's a very strong non-CT attack, especially if your party can benefit from ice resistance down. Toomerang is your basic Boomerang attack for the time being. It hits the target and nearby enemies twice, making it super useful for general damage and groups. And if you're attacking with Boomerang with nothing more important ready, this is often your default. For our first CT skill, we have Frostbird Throw, which is an ice version of Blazebird Throw. It hits multiple times and can lower fire and earth resistance specific to Ranger's version. This is super useful for party damage. Even when the resistance down isn't central, it's still a very solid attack. Next up, we have Double Down. This is very important because it lowers the enemy's resistance to status effects. This can help other debuffs land more consistently, including things like Force Break and other party support effects. Even if it sounds like a damage move, its real value is utility. Revel Slicer is one of Boomerang's claim to fame. It's a single target attack that can apply damage taken up. When it lands, the enemy takes more damage and your entire party gets a burst of opportunity. I cannot understate how important this is. And last but not least, we have Giga Blow. It's a Ranger-specific Boomerang attack that hits in a line with heavy lightning damage and can lower wind and lightning resistance. Because Boomerang also uses a shield, I want to real quick go over shield skills. Immense Defense increases your block rate, which helps you survive when you need to hold your ground. Glockenspiel is a defend command that also hits the enemy. Overall, it's not that useful as its damage is not very high at all. Wholly Impregnable makes it easier to resist harmful status effects. This is useful when the enemy has dangerous debuffs because losing control of your character can ruin your ability to support the party. Critical Guard reduces damage from critical hits, or otherwise known as desperate attacks. If an enemy can deal a scary crit, this can save your life. Phalanx reduces the damage you take, but it also reduces the damage you deal. On Ranger, that downside is usually acceptable when survival matters and you need to live through a dangerous part of the fight. Phalanx is very strong. Spell Block blocks one spell. This is useful when a dangerous spell is coming and you need a simple way to protect yourself. Aegis Defense is one of the most important CT skills in the game and one of the best shield skills. It combines damage reduction, critical guard, and increased shield block rate. It's an all-in-one defensive button. And for our last CT skill, we have Power Shield. It heals you and gives you healing when you block with your shield. It's not always the first shield skill you press, but it's another survival option when you need to recover yourself. Overall, the basic idea is that you use your shield to stay safe, you keep your attack buffs and your Mist Me active, you use Double Down to help debuffs land, use Revel Slicer to create damage windows, and you use your other boomerang skills to lower elemental resistances, as well as revive and rebuff allies when they die. Up next, I'd like to talk about Claw skills. Claw is a more aggressive melee utility style, and personally, this style is one of my favorites. Claws give you strong melee damage, Rake and Break for removing enemy buffs, and Somersault Claw for reliable damage windows, and Wild Animal for a big burst damage. The downside is you are more in melee range and your skills can come out quite slowly, so you have to be careful and keep yourself safe. You do not have shields for safety, so Claw Ranger can be powerful, but you need to be careful to not be greedy. To start, we have Propeller Blade. It's an old wind-based attack and it's heavily outscaled. I wouldn't even consider this skill. Next up, we have Can Opener. It deals more damage to machine enemies, which is a niche, but most of the time modern claw tools are stronger and more important. Next we have Hawkeye Claw, which always deals damage. It's a very hard skill to miss and can be useful when fighting metal enemies before they run, but outside of that it's not very useful. Next we have our bread and butter basic claw attack. We have Hard Claw. It hits 3 times and deals very sufficient damage. It is basically your main damage option when you have no CT skills to use. Rake and Break is one of your most powerful utility skills. It doesn't deal that much damage and it does have a very long animation, but when you use it, it removes all buffs that the enemy has. For one of our best skills in the game, we have Somersault Claw. This inflicts damage up effects very reliably, I believe at 100%, making it one of the best burst setup tools that Ranger has. Following that, we have Wild Animal, which is our big claw burst attack. It hits 5 times and deals huge damage, especially during a damage up window. Ideally, you want to use it after Somersault Claw or some type of damage increase setup. We also have Fang and Claw. Fang and Claw gives you Attack Plus, which is separate from Umfo. That makes it a good setup tool for your own burst. If you can safely use it before Wild Animal, your damage increases much more. And last we have Hand of God. Hand of God is a strong light-based frontal attack. It is not the same kind of single target monster as Wild Animal, but as a powerful CT attack, it is still worth knowing and using when the situation fits. Overall, Claw is very good for dealing damage, increasing the damage burst, and also dealing burst damage yourself during these damage increase windows. I highly recommend using this weapon. Now that we have gone over Boomerang and Claws, I want to go over weapon swapping one more time. Ranger often swaps weapons because different weapons give access to different tools. Boomerang can give you Revel Slicer, Claws can give you Somersault Claw and Rake and Break, so being able to swap between them interchangeably gives you more damage burst windows. A simple pattern to start with is starting with Boomerang and Shield for safety, supporting the party with Crimson Fog, then using Revel Slicer when the party is ready to burst, then later swapping to Claws, using Somersault Claw when the party is ready, and following that up with Wild Animal. Then, if you need safety again, or prepare for the next Revel Slicer, you swap back to Boomerang and Shield. A huge warning though is that weapon swapping has huge recovery and lag and can leave you very vulnerable. Do not swap just because a cooldown is ready. If someone is dead, revive first. If the party needs Mist Me, refresh Mist first. If the boss is about to attack, wait. Weapon swapping is powerful, but support comes first. Stabilize the party, then use weapon swaps to prepare the next burst window. Next, I'd like to talk about Axe. Axe is a more aggressive, damage-focused ranger style. The special thing about it is it also strengthens Ranger's own special skills. With Axe equipped, Fenrir Whistle gets stronger and applies defense down. Cerberus Rondo and Anubis Assault also become stronger. In some situations, you may even swap to Axe before using your Ranger skills in order to make those skills stronger. Now let's get into the Axe skills. To start, we have Pauper Toppler. It's a skill that deals more damage to plant enemies, so it's not a very useful skill to use in later gameplay. Next up, we have Parallax, which is a single target axe attack that can paralyze the enemy. Afterwards, we have Helm Splitter, which is a pretty useful utility skill as it can lower the enemy's defense, making it helpful to your physical attacker allies. Next up, we have Hatchet Man, which is a low accuracy attack that always crits, making it useful against Metal Slimes and Metal Kings. Following that, we have Axes of Evil Plus. Axes of Evil Plus is your Ranger Axe area attack. It's useful when you need to hit multiple enemies, and it's one of the more practical AoE options. Next, we have our first CT skill, Scrap Metal. Scrap Metal is a very powerful utility attack that lowers defense and slows the enemy's action interval. Damage is not the main point, as the debuffs are what make it useful. Next up, we have Axes of True Evil. The stronger AoE CT attack, and it's basically a stronger version of Axes of Evil. Next up, we have Exhilarate. It's a very powerful single hit axe attack that also restores MP based on damage dealt. This gives Axe Ranger a strong damage button with some sustainability attached. And last up, we have Earth Shatter, which is a heavy earth element line attack that can hit hard, but the animation is long and enemies often have earth resistance, making it less useful in harder content. The important warning with Axe is that even with an Axe you are still Ranger. Do not forget Mist Me, do not forget to revive your allies, do not forget to oomph them, and do not forget to support your team. If you only attack and ignore the party, you are not getting the full value from the job. Now, let's talk about bows. Bows is a safer range support style, and I would not recommend it as a ranger's main damage option compared to claws or axes. Both strengths are range, safety, and status protection, as well as a wider mist coverage. I would think of bow as a support option or a secondary option, but not your main aggressive setup. Now let's get into the skills. To start off, we have Conjuring Conductor. Conjuring Conductor lowers the enemy's spell resistance, which make you very valuable if you have magical attackers in your party, as this can be a very serious damage increase. Just remember that some enemies can resist spell resist down. Next up, we have Flutter Disaster. It deals extra damage to birds, and it's not really a useful skill worth talking about. We also have Thunderbolt, which is a lightning damage attack and not a main reason to use the bow, but it's there if you want to use it. Next up, we have Rain of Pain Plus, which is your basic bow attack. It hits 4 times and comes out fairly quickly. If you're dealing damage with the bow, this is your basic bread and butter attack. Next up, we have Hollowed Arrow, which is a not very strong attack, but it does restore MP, so it exists as a small sustainability tool. Next up, we have our first CT skill, Shining Shot, the light multi-hit CT attack, which can be useful when the enemy has light resistance down or other damage boosted stack, but the animation is very long and the light resistances that later enemies get can make it awkward to use. Next up, we have Ailment Curtailment. This gives nearby allies a one-time block against harmful debuffs. It's one of Bow's better support skills, and it's useful in fights where status effects are especially dangerous, but it's not very consistent as it goes away after one skill use. Next up, we have Darkness Shot, and this is one of Ranger's best bow skills. Darkness Shot lowers the enemy's light resistance, which can set up Shining Shot, Sunlight Arrow, or other light element attacks from your party. And as we just mentioned, we have Sunlight Arrow. It's a stronger light multi-hit bow attack, and it's best used after Darkness Shot, but if the enemy resists light damage, it becomes much less exciting. Now we have Lost Shot, a ranger-specific upgraded buff removal tool. It removes anger, tension, as well as any other buffs, and it's useful because it lets you handle enemy buffs from a range. Bow Ranger's basic playstyle is to stay safe at a range, keep support coverage wide, use status protection when needed, use lost shot for enemy buffs, and only attack when your support responsibilities are handled. And now let's get into the Ranger Coup de Grace. Ranger gets Anubis Assault, and it gets a Brownie Boost. Brownie Boost is a defensive and stabilizing Coup de Grace. It gives party support effects including attack up, defense up, HP regen, and MP regen over time. This is useful when a fight gets messy or when the party needs to recover momentum. But it has a very long animation. Don't use it when it lights up, use it when you can safely stand still and the party will benefit from the sustainability. And lastly, we have Anubis Assault. It's an offensive special that deals heavy damage, but also sets the enemy's defense to 0 for a short time. Because the debuff window is short, you want to coordinate it with your party. If you're using Axe, Anubis Assault becomes even stronger because Axe has a Ranger-specific Anubis enhancement. The basic rule is simple. Use Brownie Boost to help stabilize the fight when you're able to, and use Anubis Assault to create a moment of burst damage. Don't use either randomly, use them when their effects will actually matter. So how do you actually play a Ranger in a real fight? At the start of the fight, your first goal is usually to stabilize your party. If Crimson Fog is ready, use it early so the party gets attack up and breath protection. After that, watch the party and the enemy. Does everyone have attack up? Does everyone have missed me? Is the healer safe? Is anyone dead? Does the enemy have a buff that needs to be removed? Are your damage up skills ready? Is the party actually ready to use a burst window? If someone dies, think about reviving them. After you revive them, think about what they lost. They may need Oomphle, Missed Me, or a heal. Once the party is stable, start thinking about damage support. If the party is ready to attack, use Cerberus Rondo, Revel Slicer, or Somersault Claw to create a damage up window. During that window, your damage dealer should burst, and you can also add your own damage if it is safe. After the burst window ends, go back to support awareness. Refresh Miss Me, rebuff people, revive if needed, use Dark Fog or other debuffs when appropriate, then prepare the next burst window. That is Ranger's rhythm. Support, stabilize, create a damage window, return to support, and repeat. And that's Ranger. Ranger's support utility job that can still deal real damage. You protect the party, you keep buffs going, you revive people so the healer can alleviate pressure, you weaken enemies, you create burst windows, and you have so many weapon variety options, all of which are very useful. No matter what weapon you use though, the core idea stays the same. A good Ranger makes the whole party better. Ranger's not just there to attack, it's there to keep the fight under control and create moments where the party can win. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope this was helpful to all of you, and I hope you can look forward to more soon. Bye!